Welcome to 5G new radio 3GPP specifications driven overview. This presentation is specially made for the professionals of wireless who may be already familiar with the 36 series which are relevant for the 5G in terms of LTE exposure. However, even if some of you are looking at the 3GPP specifications for the first time, you are welcome, and we will familiarize you looking backwards what is the world of LTE specifications from 5G point of view, and you would be able to better relate with LTE as well. Apart from the physical layer, that is 38.211, 212, 213, 214 and 215. We also have couple of other layers, PDCP, RLC and SDAP, which is specific to 5G, and we will conclude how this 5G new radio is superior in its performance in terms of quality as compared to LTE. 38.211, the scope of this layer, physical layer, this standard defines the uplink and downlink physical channels, the frame structure which is 10 milliseconds, the resources like subcarriers and symbols, the modulations like BPSK, QPSK, QAM and OFDM signal, how they are generated, scrambling, modulation and up conversion, layer mapping and pre-coding, physical shared channel in the uplink and downlink, reference signal in the uplink and downlink, and random access channel, primary and secondary synchronization signals. OFDM symbol duration and the cyclic prefix duration scale based on the numerology. So we talk about numerology. So numerology is with a symbol mu 0 to 4, whereas the 0 refers to LTE modus operandi of the 15 kilohertz subcarrier with the normal cyclic prefix. And what is new in 5G is mu number 1 to 4, 30, 60, 120 and 240 kilohertz. In one particular case, there is extended cyclic prefix. Yeah, I'm in a conference call. Sorry about that. So we have, in this table, we talk about 15 kilohertz, 30 kilohertz, 60 kilohertz, and even beyond. So it is certain multiples of 15 kilohertz. So you can have 120 to 40. Accordingly, as the frequency increases, the duration, because time and frequency are complementary in such a nature that as frequency increases, time decreases. That is explained in the first row. And apart from the regular symbols, we have the cyclic prefix, which is a part of the portion of the symbol is copied from left and pasted to the right, and that is the cyclic prefix, 4.69 microseconds. When you add these two, 71.35 microseconds is the OFDM symbol including cyclic prefix. And similarly, as we go from 15 kilohertz upwards, the durations will be decreasing proportionate to increasing frequencies. And the number of OFDM symbols per slot is 7 or 14 depending on the slot durations. So usually it is a 0.5 millisecond is 7. If you consider 1 millisecond, then it is a 14. So in case of LTE language, we always talk about zero point 0.5 millisecond as one of the slots, 2 slots for subframe, but the nomenclature in 5G is slightly changed. They say either 7 or 14 depending on the slot duration. It conveys one and the same meaning. And when we look at further statistical data, you look at the logic of the size of the cell and the frequency band. There is some relationship, as we can see in this visual. We have x-axis indicating the low frequency, medium and high frequency for 5G, because 5G can exist in FR1, that is sub 6 gigahertz, and FR2, which is for millimeter waves, starting from 24 gigahertz up to 56 gigahertz. And the cell size can be small, medium and large. And this is the relationship between them. Wherever the blue color 15 kilohertz is there, which is similar to the kind of scenarios of LTE, and all others are new ones like the coffee color, the red and green. These are the newer implementations for 5G. And as we also have seen 2300 megahertz to 2400 megahertz in LTE TDD, we had channels like 33, 34, 35 like that. Here in 5G also we have the TDD, and TDD gives a kind of a resource constraint scenarios where we have a one single frequency to be shared by both uplink and downlink. Therefore, you need to have a philosophy of how to burst the buffer space on both sides of the transmitters. One is UE, the other one is the G node B, and uplink is UE to the G node B, and downlink is G node B to UE. And wherever we say X mark, that means it is left flexibly for either one to use. You will see a table which is pretty detailed in terms of the opportunities. You have 61 different ways of utilizing a narrow bandwidth between the transmitter and receiver when we have a single frequency to utilize. So all the 14 symbols, who needs to communicate? Is it downlink, uplink, or don't care? On these varieties you will get permutations and combinations. And now we move on to 38.212. At this point, let me relate with LTE. There was also 36.212, and pretty much the same philosophy adopted in 5G. And as in case of LTE, 5G 38.212 deals with multiplexing and channel coding. And we will see those details now. By research in military, it has been discovered that low density parity checks are very stable, and they are adopted for 5G for traffic channels, uplink and downlink shared channels, and also paging channels, whereas polar codes are used for broadcast channels. In case of control plane, DCI and UCI, downlink control information, and uplink, we use polar and block codes as per the requirements. Now LTE, something missing in this visual is LTE also has achieved 128 QAM, but documented literature points to 64 QAM and then 256 QAM, because that has been more standard in deployments. So the 5G access node supports from 1 bit per symbol, as in case of BPSK, up to 256 QAM, where you will get 8 bits per symbol. I'm in a conference call. Okay. So downlink control channel formats, we have DCI transports downlink and uplink schedule information, different formats to take care of physical uplink shared channel and downlink physical downlink shared channels. So DCI formats 2-1, 2-2, 2-3 deal with respectively the uplink part. So typically the cell sets and timing adjustment have been enhanced to work from LTE 15 kHz to for 5G up to 240 kHz of carrier spacing. Now we move on to 38.214 physical layer procedures for data, as in case of LTE, also 36.214. This specifically deals with power control, some technique that has been implemented right from CDMA, WCDMA, where power varies per second 800 times, and that is continued in LTE and 5G as well. So we look at some modulation, the MCS, that is the modulation and coding schemes. I am in a conference call. So MCS index table specifies the modulation, coding and overall spectral efficiency of the PDSH. Physical downlink shared channel. So you have got 32 modulation coding schemes wherein we achieve some spectral efficiency up to 5.55 starting from 0.23 based on different target coding rates and modulation orders. It can go up to 7.4 based on the MCS coding indices that you can achieve. And similarly we have QCI. UE reports the downlink QCI in a 4-bit field that is carried over PUCCH or PUSH, and there are two different tables for LTE type of 64 QAM and then further beyond 64. This is the 256 QAM QCI table, where you achieve spectral efficiencies of 7.4. That's a QCI index 15. What it means is that one symbol can be converted into 7.4 useful bits. That is the meaning of spectral efficiency. Then finally, this is something that did not exist parallel in case of LTE. We did not have a 36.215. But 5G has 38.215, specially aimed at giving measurements and NG-RAN control of these measurements and capabilities to give a holistic view of the performance of the system. So we can now move on to some generalizations based on that 38 series, 38.211 up to 215. All the 5 documents were on the physical layer. So typically physical layer deals with the TDD or FDD, deals with either millimeter waves, that is FR2, or sub 6 gigahertz, and we have methods like beam, forming and MIMO, and these are all already there in LTE and they have been enhanced in 5G. So one typical improvement of the things in 5G in layer 2 and layer 3 is incorporation of, that is also explained in 38.300. Similarly, the LTE general view is 36.300. So here you have User plane control stack protocol stack includes SDAP, and this adaptation protocol is something new for 5G. And we already had 5 layer, MAC layer, RLC and PDCP, and the SDAP is something new, and we will dwell upon what this SDAP does. And when you look at the control plane, we have a non-access stratum connecting to the AMF, that is access and modulation frame, mobility, access and mobility uh, frame, that is NAS, UE to NAS, that is something like in case of node B instance there is an RNC, and in case of LTE we had a MME, and similarly we have a interface called UE and G node B and AMF dealing with access and mobility function. When we closely see both the protocol stacks, we see many similarities between LTE and 5G. And the new thing that, as I mentioned, I will also emphasize is the service data adaptation, which is to provide low latency as compared to what has been achieved in LTE by using network slicing and new methods for the handling of QoS. And we have the previous slide mentioning about AMF, that is access and management mobility function, similar to the functionality of MME in case of LTE. So layer 2 functions of the new radio is service data adaptation protocol on top of PDCP, RLC and MAC, which already existed previously. The two figures of the next two slides depict the layer 2 architecture for downlink and uplink, where the physical layer offers to the MAC sublayer the transport channels, and MAC sublayer offers to the RLC sublayer logical channels. RLC sublayer offers to the PDCP sublayer RLC channels. PDC sublayer offers to the service data adaptation sublayer radio bearers, and SDAP sublayer offers to 5G core QoS flows. And so control channels are broadcast control channel, physical control channels are not depicted for clarity. So we have this kind of diagram: MAC, RLC, PDCP and SDAP. And we also have robust header compression and security and QoS handling scenarios depicted in this. So QoS is very important quality of service, that is where service data adaptation protocol plays a significant role in 5G. And the ARQ and hybrid ARQ are already there in previous implementations of wireless, like hybrid ARQ is there already in LTE. And let us look a little bit more on this service data adaptation protocol and the mapping between QoS flow and the data radio bearer due to new QoS framework. So there is a QoS flow ID, just like a QCI number in case of 23.401 for the core of LTE. Here we have improvements in terms of the a single protocol entity of service data adaptation is configured for each individual protocol data unit. You can also have some exceptions to the rule where you can have two of them. PDCP, the main services and functions of this sublayer are for sequencing, the numbering, ciphering, deciphering and integrity protection, transfer of control plane data, duplicate detection and duplication of PDCP PDUs. RLC layer, the main jobs of that is error correction, segmentation, reassembly, and discarding the SDUs of the RLC, re-establishment, and the transferring of the upper layer PDUs is the roles of RLC. MAC, it is to deal with the mapping between logical and transport channels, multiplexing, demultiplexing of MAC SDUs belonging to one or different logical channels into or from transport blocks delivered to or from the physical layer on transport channels. Scheduling information reporting, error correction through hybrid ARQ, priority handling between UEs by means of dynamic scheduling, priority handling between logical channels of one UE by means of logical channel prioritization, and padding. These are all the functions of MAC, pretty much same even in case of LTE. What is special about the new MAC, if you might want to know, is a single MAC entity can support one or multiple numerologies. That was not the case in 4G or LTE. And our TTI durations, time transmission interval, which is like 1 millisecond fixed in case of LTE, is not the same as in 5G. It can be several times less than 1 millisecond, which means that the chipsets built by Qualcomm and others for 5G will be able to chirp at much faster rate to give higher data rates. So, as a summary, let me highlight, it is very helpful to start learning 5G from OFDM downlink visualization of LTE, and also relate with the 3GPP specifications of 36 series and then move on to 38 series. And amongst all these documents, 36.300 and 38.300 are like metadata, where they will give index numbers to what every other document is doing. So even if you have not gone through any other document, just reading 38.300 helps you to relate what all documents are written by 3GPP and what is their central idea. You will get that in a nutshell. There are other tools also like dogley.in/LTE, and we look forward to see similar evolutions for 5G also. Thank you for your attention, and for those of you who are in my face-to-face class, I am now available for question and answers. Eventually we will take this kind of deliveries online also, where we can help remote participants ask questions, and I will be able to address their queries. This is Flight Lieutenant Kishore, and thank you very much for your attention.